What does it take to play scratch golf? Well, honestly, I'm not a scratch golfer. So, what do I know? But I can tell you somebody who do. Somebody who does know something about scratch golf, and even better. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome back to GolfTestDummy, the channel where I use my game to help your game, and today we're going to use somebody else's game to help all of our games. I read an article recently in Golf Digest about Will Zalatoris and his recipe on how to play scratch golf. There's 4 parts to this. We're going to start with number 2, however, because I'm going to save number 1 until the end. It might actually surprise you what he's got to say. That is meat. So number 1 on our list is going to be take more club. Now, you hear this advice all the time. This is just so common in the golf world for everybody to say, take one more club. Take one more club. If you're in the hazard, take another club. If you're in the rough, take one more club. If you're not sure about it, you got a little bit of a in-betweener, take one more club. That's the most common advice. Well, keep your head down. It's way up there. So in the article, the author says, amateur golfers miss greens short all the time, in large part because they don't take enough club. That is so true. I don't have Arcos, but I have tracked my clubs with golf GPS devices, laser devices. I use the Golf Pad app on my phone all the time to track all the yardages on my clubs. And there are just so many times that I'm under clubbing. It's not even necessarily that you're under clubbing and then you misstrike it. It's just that you're not taking into account all of the factors. And one of the big things that drives under clubbing is your ego. But if you look at some of the Arcos data that's out there, and if I take a look at my own Golf Pad data, I miss a lot of greens. Why am I missing those greens? Where am I missing those greens? I'm missing those greens short or right almost every time. Sometimes I do miss left, but it is so incredibly rare that I miss the green off the back. On to number 2, which is eliminate double bogeys. That sounds like a complete no-brainer. It's like, well, duh. Yeah, I mean, everybody would love to eliminate double bogeys, but I think in the spirit of this, why he's mentioning this is because I don't think we place enough forethought into trying to make sure that we don't make double bogeys or worse, triple bogeys as well. But double bogeys, oftentimes for amateur golfers, it can come as the result of not being a good putter, sure. It could come from mishitting a shot, topping a shot in the fairway. It could come from a duffed chip or leaving a shot in a bunker. Absolutely, it can come from that, but it can also come from just mental brain farts, errors that we make by choosing the wrong club or trying to do too much or hitting it OB off of the tee, and then you play the rest of the hole fairly decent, and it just leads you to a double bogey. So ask yourself, what are you doing that leads to most of your double bogeys? Go back over your card at the end of your round when you're sitting at home, licking your wounds. Ask yourself, how did this double bogey happen? How did that triple bogey get on the card? What did I do? Was that a misstrike? Was it a physical error? Or was it a mental mistake that I made in choosing the wrong club or the wrong shot? He also adds a quote in here that says, how do you get from a 12 handicap to an 8? Make fewer doubles. That's it. Good golf is not super sexy. I would amend that, not to argue with a better than scratch tour winning golfer. I don't want to do that. But when you say good golf is not super sexy, I would say that that's fairly accurate. But I would say more accurate than that would be is that good golf is not always super sexy. If you shot 18 pars, a lot of people would say that that's not super sexy golf. But then other times it might be that you made 8 or 9 birdies and then you had some bogeys to kind of counteract that. So it was more exciting. Maybe you had some really great shots. Maybe you had some hole outs. Maybe you even had a hole in one. That would be a sexy round or a sexy shot. So I would say that good golf is not always sexy. The third thing he says is different shots around the green. Learn those. 3 steps to the recipe will get you down to a solid 8 handicap pretty quickly. Sure, But if you want to get down to scratch, the extra little bit that you're going to need is going to come from having a variety of shots and choices around the green with your short game. That's very true, but remember not to get too cute. I would say if you can't pull off a shot 7 out of 10 times with some sort of relative skill to get it close to the hole, if it ends in disaster just as often as it ends up being a good shot, I would say work on that shot a little bit more until you can develop it before you go put it into play. Otherwise, if you have one go-to shot or 2 go-to shots that you know you've practiced, that you know you can pull off at least 7 out of 10 times, I would say stick with those until you can actually get 7 out of 10 times good shots with multiple clubs and different types of shots around the green. Oftentimes, the lie is going to dictate what choices you have, and you may not have a lot of choices, but getting cute with your short game can cost you just as many strokes a lot of times as just poor technique. All right, on to tip number 4 by my count, but tip number 1 in this article. The author has some words in here to mention about this as well that I'll read you. This last one, I chose it to be the last one because it's a little odd. Okay, there's a few odd things about it. This one is get it on the green as fast as you can. Now, that sounds like a total duh sort of statement, and it is. It is very elementary and basic. Just get it on the green as fast as you can. Hey, instead of taking 7 shots, why don't we try putting it on the green in I don't know, 2 shots? But he's talking about distance off the tee and how much of a necessity it is to be able to drive the ball off the tee with your driver further, to try and gain as much yardage as you can and always try and max out the distance. It's talking about strokes gained and all that stuff you guys have probably heard of by now. But the author in here says every 10 yards you gain off the tee basically correlates to 1 stroke off your scoring average. And Zalatoris says to get all the way down to scratch, you need to drive the ball at least 280 yards. Now, there's 2 things, and we're going to separate that. We're going to go to the first one where the author says every 10 yards you gain off the tee correlates to 1 stroke off your scoring average. So if you put 30 yards on off of the tee, if you somehow go through speed training or you get a new driver and you're driving the ball 30 yards further, by this math, it's basically saying you're going to drop 3 strokes. Maybe in averages across a wide range of people. But if the reason that you're losing strokes is because you can't putt, all the driving in the world is not going to help you that much. Look, I don't know. I'm not an expert. He quotes it and says it here. The author does, not Will Zalatoris. But I've got no reason to dispute it. I personally wouldn't know. I don't drive the ball a long way. But the second part of this, where Zalatoris says to get all the way down to scratch, you need to drive the ball at least 280 yards. Well, I don't drive the ball 280 yards. Don't know a whole lot of people that do. And apparently Arcos doesn't know a whole lot of people that do either, because the scratch golfer, the average scratch golfer, according to Arcos, drives the ball, I think, around 235 to 240 yards on average. I could be wrong about that, but it's definitely not 280 yards. It's important to remember who this information is coming from. This information is coming from a top-level touring pro, literally one of the best golfers on the entire planet. And he plays from the tips. So when you look at that, and he says you have to drive the ball 280 yards or more to be scratch, take that with a grain of salt, because we can all play from different tees. We're not on the pro tour. We don't have to play from the tips. Please don't play from the tips unless you're an elite golfer. It's not for us. The game you see on TV is very different from the game that we play. Don't be ashamed of what tees you play from. They're just different colored tees. It's not even designated as men's and ladies and juniors and seniors anymore. They're just the gold tees, the blue tees, the red tees, the black tees. That's all. Play from the tees that match up with your yardages. You can play scratch golf all day and only drive the ball 200 yards if you play from the correct tees. We all have our different distances. We're all differently built, and it's totally okay if your driving distance average is 210 or 220. It doesn't have to be 280. I think you're looking through the prism of professional level golf in that case when you say you have to drive the ball 280 yards. Don't panic, calm down. You don't have to play scratch golf. Just play from the correct tees. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this little jaunt down the road with Will Zalatoris and some of his thoughts. He is a top level elite golfer. He definitely can help you with your game if you listen. I think that this was a great article. I'm very appreciative to have this information from the author and Will himself. I think it can help a lot of us if we put it into practice. Until next time, see you then.